All right, if you guys have faced setbacks in your life, whether it be with health or with business, and you're looking for inspiration from an incredible entrepreneur, today is a special episode for you. I have one of the best entrepreneurs in the Dayton, Ohio area. He's built the largest HVAC company, has all kinds of awards and accolades and inspiration to many online. Right here today in the studios, we have founder and president of McAfee Heating and Air, Mr. Greg McAfee.
Why do they doubt the kid? I'm about to prove them all wrong again. I got a low tolerance because they don't even know what the problem.
Greg, welcome to Maxed Out Studios, man. How are you?
I'm real good. Thanks for having me, Todd. Appreciate it.
I know you're busy. You're rocking on all cylinders. So taking the time to come out here and talk with us, I appreciate it more than you know. But more than that, the people that follow us, people that listen to this, there's not a whole lot of people better than you to get some inspiration from on entrepreneurship. And you know, you have faced so many things in your life and business, and I want to dive into all of them. But before we do all that, you've been in Dayton for, a big part of your life, but you grew up outside of Dayton. What's kind of your background?
I did. I was born in Akron, Ohio, and my dad worked at Firestone Tire and Rubber Company in Akron. It used to be the rubber city of the world. And my grandfather retired from Firestone. So my dad transferred to Mansfield, Ohio when I was 5 years old. So we lived there for a while, and I hated school. It was boring to me. I always worked through high school. I was in they used to call it the slow class. It was called OWE, the Ohio Work Program. And so I worked 2 jobs and went to school half day. And so when I graduated, I barely graduated high school. And I was working 2 jobs and didn't want to go to college, couldn't go to college. And my dad said, "Hey, we're moving to Dayton." The old Dayton Tire plant, Firestone owned it. So we took over the warehouse. So at 19, my dad said, "If you want in, I can get you in." So I'm there. So I loaded up a pickup truck and moved to Dayton. Never been here in my life, never heard of it. And really neat story. I was back in the day, 1983. I was at a huge phone booth, payphone booth. And
hold on, let's stop. Greg, you're gonna have to tell everybody what a phone booth is, because most of our audience is 30 to 35. Man, they might not. I know.
Okay.
I know. I used to have a pager, and I'd have to get the page and go to the phone booth, but some don't, right? Like, for all of you that don't know, you went into a booth, you put a quarter in, and might even been cheaper then, and you pick up the phone and you make a phone call. Yeah. That's your phone booth.
There were literally 20 phones in this phone booth. It was up off Salem Avenue. And Firestone was down off Rosedale Avenue, so it was on the west side. And so anyway, I'm standing there looking for a place to live. I'm just calling apartments. And this lady tapped me on the shoulder, and she said, "Can I ask what you're doing?" And she was older, probably younger than me today. She was older. And I said, "I'm looking for a place to live." And she said, "I don't normally do this, but I just feel led." She said, "You're going to come home with me. You're going to live with me. And my kids are in college. You're going to live with us, my husband and I, until we find you a place to live. I'm a realtor." That's how I was welcomed to Dayton. It was awesome. So I lived with her. She lived over by, I was going to say Air Arena. It's gone. So she lived back in there. She lived back there, and I lived with them for 2 to 3 weeks. Gave me a key to their house. Came and went as I pleased. Worked all day. But anyway, that's how I was welcomed to Dayton. So it was a great welcoming. And she found me an apartment, and I moved out. And had I been more mature, I probably would have stayed in touch with them, because it really made an impact on me how I was welcomed to Dayton, Ohio. So long story short, I was working at Firestone for a while. I was killing it, loading tires, unloading tires. They were the United Rubber Workers. So the union has a great benefits. I made a lot of money for 19 years old, 20 years old, 21, 22. However, the warehouse manager started posting on a bulletin board who loaded the most tires the fastest. I was number 1. Union filed a grievance, take the bulletin board down. Didn't understand that at 21, 22 years old. But I didn't like it. So as I watched older guys getting up and down forklifts, I said, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. So I told my dad, I said, I'm just going to join the Marine Corps. I wanted to anyway out of high school, and I didn't. So I said, I'm going to join the Marine Corps, serve 2 years. If I want to come back, Firestone held my job. So I served in the Marine Corps, and I took a random course in there because I was just you have to realize I did not like school, so I didn't do well in vocabulary or English or any of that. I really flunked out. I got D minuses. And so I had very poor, my vocabulary, was a lot of F-bombs, a lot of GD, that's just how I spoke. So anyway, fast forward today, a lot of people ask me if I majored in communications. And I have to say, yeah, because I was a radio operator in the Marine Corps and I carried a radio on my back. So that was my communications. So anyway, I served in the Marine Corps, but I took a refrigeration course randomly for extra credit and I liked it. So when I got out, I took heating and air at night. Firestone held my job. I worked during the day, got my certificate from heating and air, left Firestone for a 50% pay cut to get into heating and air. And the first job I worked about 6 months and he fired me. He said, "You'll never make it as a mechanic." And I actually agreed because I was okay, but I wasn't the mechanic he was looking for.
Sure.
I had more of ideas of what he should do to grow than I did how to fix a furnace. So I went to work for another company. He put me in service. I learned how to sell because I learned how to talk to a lot of people in service. And I would just ask them questions and I eventually outsold their salesperson, their full-time salesperson. So he didn't like me. So stayed there for just a little bit over a year. They closed their doors. He just didn't know how to operate a business. And so in 1990, I got married, bought a house, started McAfee all the same year with $274 and a used truck.
Man, that's a pretty powerful year, right? Now here's what I just heard from that. Just taking a little snip out of it. I know a lot of wealthy people. I know a lot of guys and gals that are rich, and there's one thing that they all have in common. They all sell something to somebody, right? And we're always selling if you're in business. And it sounds like early on you learn like, hey, that's going to be the key to success, right? Like, yes, you can go out and fix a furnace, you can go out and fix a car, you can go out and you can be a laborer all your life. But when you learn the power of selling and the power of connecting with people, man, that's a game changer. So kudos to you. Sounds like you learned that pretty early on and created that entrepreneurial spirit pretty early.
Well, I'm glad when I was younger, I had a paper route. You don't even have those anymore, but I had a paper route and I delivered papers to homes. And I did all the collection, the money collection. I learned to count money fast. That came easy to me. Even today, I blow people's minds how fast I can add, subtract, multiply, and divide in my head faster than any CPA. And that came natural to me. But I learned responsibility. I had to deliver those papers by a certain time. I had a vegetable route. I had to deliver vegetables. We carried vegetables around to door. I still think that would rock today because people love fresh vegetables. And we got $1 a basket when we sold, but that was, when I was little. So, and then I had a friend whose grandparents owned an apple orchard, and we'd pick apples for $1 a bushel or basket, whatever they were called. So I just worked. I just made money and worked. Now, in my younger years, I spent more than I made.
Sure.
I just wasn't responsible.
Well, we all do.
And, but as I got older and I learned more and more about finances, and I knew I had to make this business work because I had a lot of family members, even my own mother. I call her my biological mother because I have no relationship with her, unfortunately. She told me I'd never make it. And she said, "You'll never make it." And then she'd tell family members that when I bought my first air duct cleaning truck, which there was only two in 1993, there were only two companies doing air duct cleaning. And she said that's his biggest downfall, buying that truck. We've done multi-millions, in air duct cleaning since 1993. We're number one in air duct cleaning in many, many, many states. So it's kind of funny, but it's sad. So no one ever was cheering me on saying, "You can do this, Greg." And nobody ever in 35 years put $1 in my account and said, "Here, go." It's all been earned. It's all been, I hate to use the word deserved. It's not deserved. It's all been earned. And I've surrounded myself in my younger years in business with extremely smart business people. I joined Aileron about that same era, 92, 93. Clay Mateel founded it. He sold IMS for 2.3, 2.4 billion. Unfortunately, he just passed away recently, but he was in the first class I took, the president's course. I'm sitting next to Clay Mateel. I didn't know who he was. And some of the guys that he had teaching were my mentors. I mean, I was a sponge, and I learned more about business. And then, of course, along the way, I had to take vocabulary and English classes, cassette tape. I had to learn how to talk. I had to learn words, and I just played them over and over, driving between calls, because I was pronouncing words wrong on sales calls and losing sales over it.
Sure.
I mean, it was sad. And I can still think back, and I can probably show you the house where I called something wrong, and they corrected me. So
Yeah.
it was extremely sad, funny, sad. Just because I didn't care in high school, and it was free then, right? And I just didn't apply myself. There were a lot of teachers would write that at the top. Greg did not apply himself.
You know, that's a common theme though. And I see this, my business mentor, we talked about him earlier a little bit. John Pultz is my business mentor. He's one of the smartest guys that I know without a formal education, retired cop, didn't go to college. And it kind of makes me always think, and I've told this story before, but I have a 13-year-old boy, and he's in school. He goes to private school, and his first and second year in private school from public school, it was a huge transition for him. They were learning on a higher level. They were more strict, and he was getting some bad grades, and he's a great kid. But my kid is the one that will sit in his bedroom or when we're driving around, and he'll create a business plan for something, like making wiffle ball bats or something crazy, right? Like he talks to me about day trading, and he's just an entrepreneurial spirit, probably because he's been around me.
Sure.
But he was getting bad grades. We went in for a parent-teacher conference, and this is going to lead us into like the next discussion. And we sat down with his teachers, my wife and I, and two teachers, and they're telling us he's a great kid. He doesn't act up, but his grades are bad, and whatever. And there wasn't really any solutions from that conversation. And I asked him, and my wife kind of cringed. I said, "Well, what are you doing to support his learning?" And they were stumped. They said, "Well, we're the teachers. We're teaching him." I said, "Tell me one personal thing about my kid. What's he like to do outside of school? What's he involved in?" And they couldn't answer that. And for me, I said, "Listen, I know you guys are the teachers, but for me, I want this to be a teaching moment. I've coached youth sports forever. I didn't do good in school. I struggled. If it wasn't for my high school girlfriend, I would have never passed government's class or graduated." And I said, "I think what you guys are doing is you're doing what's wrong with our education system right now. You guys have this cookie cutter approach. You're pushing agendas on kids. You're trying to make them learn what you think that they should learn, instead of understanding that education is an individualized piece. My kid might not be able to color within lines, or he might not be able to do math, but why don't you sit down and figure out what really drives him, right? Do you know that he can sit down and create a business plan? How many kids in your grade right now could do that? How many kids in your grade can explain to you what day trading is, or how to be an entrepreneur, or how to start a business? So if you grade him on those things, he'll excel past all of your class. But if we're just looking at the books, you're not going to be able to. What do you think about the education system? I mean, do you agree with that at all or not? Like, I just think we're so like push this crazy agenda out there instead of really feeling what kids drive. And like, you didn't do good school, I didn't do good school. It's a common theme when I talk to entrepreneurs. Like, I didn't like school because I didn't like the material. I didn't want to learn that stuff. Yeah. But man, if I'm passionate about something, I'll sit down and you won't get me to sleep, because that's all I'll do is learn about that. It sounds like you're the same way, but what do you think the solution in our education system is right now for dealing with kids like that, for you and me and my mentors that just didn't like school?
Well, it's what you said. It's all a cookie cutter approach, and it has been for years. Plus, it's a liberal view of things, which is completely twisted. And trying to find what some kids excel at that extremely well, and they should be in that. But you should divide the school up into different areas to where you can really, schools should be to where you're helping everyone excel and succeed and pass. And I remember reading about a certain professor who gave his students all the answers at the beginning, and they almost fired him. He said, "I'm here to help people pass, not fail." And he actually wrote the 1 Minute Manager. Can't think of his name. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, school, even from grade school on up, it's messed up. It's old school, no pun, and it needs changed. We have to adapt. There's a lot of young entrepreneurs today that would excel in a different kind of teaching.
Yeah, I read a study the other day. Maybe you've seen it, or maybe you've seen some guys or gals talking about that you follow. But they talk about the fastest group of growing millionaires right now are plumbers, HVACs, and electricians, guys that didn't go to college, and it's because it's kind of a dying breed within our country. And I'm sure you see it with, and I see it all the time. My father's retired HVAC. I don't think I told you that, but he's a magician. I can send him out to a furnace that's been in for 40, 50, 60 years. And first of all, if I replace it, he'll kill me. He says, don't take these old things out. You leave them in there, because I can work on them.
Yeah.
But he'll hook it up with a doorbell and like 13 other things, and that thing will run for another 3 years. And if I call a younger technician out, or the guys that work full time for me, it's like, we need to replace this, Todd.
Yeah.
Really, the guys that started in the trade, especially like HVAC, it's such a dying breed that they I don't want to say it, but they don't build them like they used to.
Right.
And I think that's part of like our educational system. But getting back to McAfee, you guys are the largest local heating and air, and I want to give you kudos. I think you're one of the greatest marketers in our area when it comes to a service business like you guys do. Even before I knew who you were, I saw you everywhere. Your ads are always on point. I was in some networking, some B&I networking with a couple of your McAfee guys, and I was always impressed with them. Their professionalism was always on point. They were very educated. They were smart. They were pointed with their answers. They gave a great image of your company before I knew anything about you, and I think that says a lot to your leadership and growing to be one of the largest local company. What do you think it was about your leadership that's created McAfee today the way that it is?
Well, first of all, I created an image before I even knew how, because I started out, we had our first house was an 800 square foot ranch, and I started out at a kitchen table in Beaver Creek, and it was in an industrial area. It was Woodhaven Swim Club over there. There's a couple banks. There was a car dealership. And I was very fortunate because I started there. And then I built a garage behind my house a couple years later. I visioned the garage. It was going to be there. It's 24 by 24, split down the middle, half office, half warehouse. But it was extremely professional. When you walked in that garage, it was just like this office. It was nice. And but I never invited anyone to the garage because I didn't want anybody to know I worked out of a garage. So I delivered everything free. Everything we sold, $8 filler was free. We'd deliver it. Because the image was we were bigger than what we were. And the first business book I ever read was called Business by the Book by Larry Burkett. And it was a biblically based, how to run a business, biblically based. Take care of people, pay your bills on time, do stuff with integrity, do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. That's what I learned from. And that's what I've done from day one. And that's rare in the trades where you got, guys, dirty jeans and dirty t-shirts, where we had uniforms from day one. I had my own uniform when it was just me for a year. And professionalism was the key for me because I wanted to raise the bar in the industry. I got tired of seeing old dirty trucks with crooked letters on there, Bob's Heating and all that crap. Yeah. That's what it was. And I raised the bar. When I started raising the bar, everybody else started raising their bar. So I'd like to think I had something to do with raising the bar of our industry. And then I started teaching and coaching nationwide. And I have a little touch everywhere because that's what I teach. And that's what has been spread around when they think of McAfee and all these HVAC plumbing now seminars. They know Greg McAfee stands for quality, and he brands himself like no other and his company. And we've always just created an image that's much bigger than ourselves.
Yeah, I think a lot of young entrepreneurs, when they start in business, that's one of the hardest things. And I think it comes from like a middle class and poor mindset. And, before I had money, before I had great businesses, I had the same mindset, and my wife did. And it took me a long time to get out of that. But what I learned very early on from my mentor was stop tripping over the dollars to make the pennies, right? And you just talked about uniforms and branding yourself. So many people say, well, I can't afford that yet. Like, when my business gets a little bit bigger, yeah, I'll do XXX. What is it? I mean, we can get a uniform supplier to come in here for our maintenance guys, and they drop them off. They clean them for the guys. They do all the stuff they want. It costs me a couple $100 a month. And some people say, well, I can't afford that right now. But the image and what you do to project yourself out there by spending that little bit extra cash, I would say that by you doing that, your opinion would be, man, that helped you blow your business up.
Well, I say my answer is you can't afford not to.
Yeah.
Because I didn't pay myself for 18 months, but I had uniforms. and I had a clean truck.
Right.
I didn't have a new truck. I had a clean truck, and it had a professional logo on it, and it didn't have air conditioning. And I drove that truck everywhere. It was my little billboard, and all it was a Ford Ranger with a service cap on the back. But I didn't pay myself for 18 months. And I actually did work for a CPA who had a couple units stolen. And he just asked me out of the blue. He said, "Are you paying yourself?" I said, "No." And he said, "You are starting today." And he went in and wrote me up. "This is what you're going to make, $1,200 a month. And you're going to pay this to FICA and this to this and this to this. Go do it." And he goes, "Don't miss a paycheck. Pay yourself just like you do your suppliers." And I did. I never missed a paycheck. And, Mr. Kentner was his name. And I thank him, for that, because he got me going on that, because I was thinking I can't afford to pay myself. I was my wife made a little, and we lived off that. And then we did something really cool, because she worked in graphic arts, but there was a lot of fumes. So a couple years later, we wanted to start having kids, and she didn't want to be around those fumes and be pregnant. So we actually lived on my salary. And this came from Business by the Book, Larry Burkett. If you can live off that salary for 6 months, then she can afford to quit. And we did. And that's how when she quit, then Travis came along pretty soon. He's 30 today.
Yeah.
And we have Tiffany, she's 21, and we lost one in between. But, I love kids stuff. I love sponsoring kids, and I've coached all my kids all through stuff. They played almost every sport, and, they both ended up getting some sort of scholarship. But
Well, you guys have an incredible foundation for children here in the Dayton area, right? And I think a lot of people, man, here's what drives me nuts, Greg. And you can tell me if I'm just way off base. But you're in the public eye a lot. I mean, everybody knows McAfee, right? Like, you and I weren't friends outside of this before this. Like, I wanted you on the show because you're an incredible entrepreneur, and I followed you for years, even before I was doing a podcast. But sometimes people don't want to see where we came from, right? Like the old hot dog thing. Like, they think these guys are just lucky, or they created, they have this great business.
we're real lucky.
And they don't understand all of the things that you do. And I experienced, I told you I moved out Yellow Springs a couple years back. I was always a city kid, and, I moved out there, and I made a mistake and got in a conversation about politics. And we'll touch on that here in a little bit. But one of the things that it was probably 25, 26-year-old said to me, when they found out what I did, and it wasn't because of me, they found out I was in real estate, and they started basically screaming me out of the room that I'm like this greedy person trying to gentrify neighborhoods, and I should feel horrible about myself, that I'm making money on people that are losing their houses and things like that, right? And it bothered me. I have big shoulders. Like, you can say whatever you want to me, it doesn't get to me. But for months it bothered me, because I said, how do I make sure that people understand all the great things that my wife and I do for the community, all the great sponsorships that we put out there, all the organizations that we support, the things that we do personally. I mean, I've been like you. I've been coaching sports since I was 16 years old in high school, and so often it's easy for people not to see that about us. And I don't think people in the Dayton area that don't follow McAfee or follow you, they don't hear about that a lot. And I think that's so important. But your guys' foundation, why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, if you go back to my 800 square foot ranch, and you look at, we turned a little, after we worked at the kitchen table for a while, we turned a little spare bedroom into an office, and I have pictures of it, I think, on my website, but I show it a lot on my podcast. There's 2 or 3 pictures on that little desk, and they were Little League teams. And I started sponsoring Little League teams from day one. And to find out today, we don't have enough sponsors. We've got, if you go to in Kettering, there's Kettering A, Kettering B, Kettering C teams, because they don't have sponsors.
Right.
I'm like, business owners, it's only a couple $100 to sponsor a team, get your name on a shirt or a hat. And by the way, I thought that was cool in 1991 to get my name on a hat. So, and we'd go to the games. We didn't have kids, so we just go to the games and watch our team play, right? Mm-hmm. And then I'd take them out to Dairy Queen or something. So I'm all about kids and helping kids be, I'm not about handing kids money. I'm about helping kids be the best they can be and providing a better atmosphere for them so they can be successful, just like I do for my team. That's my motto. I'm not handing you things. I'm going to help you be successful. And here's how. You have all the opportunity in the world. We don't cap payroll. You can make as much money as you want here. You make us money, you kill it, you're going to make as much money as you can. So it's kind of a mini entrepreneurial business if you think about it, because there's opportunity for growth for those who want it. But you'd
Sure.
be surprised. 80% don't want it. They just want a job. You got 20%, the 80-20 rule. I talked about it on my podcast the other day. 20% want it, and they'll work hard for it, and they'll make more than everybody else. And then everybody else gets upset they make more. So it's messed up. But anyway, children, we were sponsoring American Lung Association because indoor air quality, American Lung Association tied in well. I sat on their board here in Dayton, and then they decided to move to Cincinnati. Well, I'm all about Dayton. I want to sponsor kids
Sure.
in Dayton. I don't want to sponsor kids in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So when they did that, I got hooked up with Children's Hospital and formed my own foundation for children, and we partnered with them. And so we helped, we feed a lot of kids, but what we're able to do is if a child's in the hospital and they can't go home without air conditioning at home, then we make sure they have air conditioning at home. And if they can't go home without a HEPA filter, a really high efficiency filter for dust and particles, then we make sure they have a HEPA filter in their home. So that's how we help kids and live a normal life. And so we have 100% participation within our company. Everybody donates to the McAfee Foundation. And we do some cool things with today, fast forward, what is that, 2006, almost 20, what is that, almost 20 years?
Yeah, almost 20
19 years. So today we get with the team and we'll pick a group of who we want to sponsor. It's got to be kids. It's got to be family. And, we've done, the shoeless thing where we put shoes on kids. Somebody wanted to do that. So, we spent a couple grand putting a lot of shoes on kids. So it's fun and you get to help kids the same way. And so we don't have the United Way coming in our company getting money from us. It's 100% McAfee Foundation.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, I think that's powerful. And you know what? You get to direct your funds exactly where they need to go. And look, there's a lot of great charities out there. But if you're a real person that understands how the world works, you also know that there's a lot of scamming. There's a lot of corruption within charitable organizations.
Yes.
And oftentimes the payrolls carry way more than the money that goes out. And by doing exactly what you're doing, which is exactly how I do mine, we get to put the dollars exactly where they go. And guess what? My payroll doesn't go up because we take in more money or because we give more charity. Like, it goes where it wants. I had a call last week. I was out of town, and our local village, they called me, and you probably get some of these calls sometimes. And it was a lady that raises funds for the village to help, different kids organizations, right? Like this one was they wanted to get kids certified to be lifeguards at the local pool. And she had 6 kids, and her voice was so nervous asking me for money. And I really appreciate it, right? Because that's a hard thing for people to do, is ask for money. And I'm thinking at the end of this conversation, she's going to give me a big dollar figure. And she tells me about 6, 4 needed renewals and 2 needed fresh ones. And she was telling me how much she was. And she's like, well, would you support one of those kids? And I said, well, how much is the whole program? And she said, well, she told me the dollar amount. It was $1,100. It came out to $1,100. I said, I'll bring you a check tomorrow. Okay. Like it's not a big deal. Right. And when you're in business and you have that success, you can make those decisions and do things that you think is a good opportunity for the kids. And man, kudos for you guys, what you're doing. I know you do a lot of great things. Business though hasn't always been easy for you. You've had some challenges along the way. And if you don't mind, I want to go back to a time. This was probably, I don't even know what year it was. I was actually vice president of a local security firm. And that's kind of how we end up talking, because you were dealing with something in business at the time. And it was right when cancel culture was just going rampant, and man, it was nuts. And like, we were all like on pins and needles with, all these groups and protesters. They were just going after everybody that they could that didn't share their views. But that was probably, I would say 2017, 18, somewhere around there.
Actually, it was 2020.
Was it 2020?
It was 2020.
Okay. I thought it was a little bit longer, but 2020. So what happened with your situation?
Well, first of all, I've always been outspoken. I mean, I'm in business, and I got to be a good representation for my business in Dayton, Ohio, but I'm also extremely outspoken. I am not going to let anyone say something that's not right, or I'm going to stand up for people. My personality on the Myers-Briggs is an ENTJ, and that's only 2% of the Myers-Briggs. Whoever tests, it's only 2%. So I'm a rare bird. I'm extroverted. and I'm very outspoken. So I have to control that a lot. And so during 2020, some things were said on my personal Facebook. That's the thing. It was my personal Facebook. And I said something very insensitive at the time, during the cancel culture, during Black Lives Matter, during all this stuff. And I said something very insensitive during a very sensitive time in America. And somebody took it and they took it out of context and they rewrote it and it went viral. Huge. It was a big collage, just what Greg McAfee said. And cancel culture, I've never been attacked like this in my entire life.
Sure.
And at the time, I won't say I was scared, but it definitely freaked me out. Because I shut my Facebook page down, which a lot of people didn't understand why I did that. And I actually had to go, I met with a couple different groups in Dayton who were, did business with McAfee, were part of groups that I sponsored with McAfee. Different colors, different races, different everything, and I met with them and explained to them why I said what I said and why, all that, and why I turned my Facebook off. And they, okay, we get it. We may not agree with you, but we get it. So I was, I was personally threatened. My building was threatened to be burned down. My house was threatened to be burned down. My family was threatened and my employees were threatened. They were run off the road, flipped off, everything. I mean, it was mind-boggling, just mind-boggling. For saying something on your personal Facebook that actually 90% came true today. I lost some sponsorships. I lost a major sponsorship with the hospital, with UD. I was in the arena, basketball. I was all over in the arena, spending tens of thousands of dollars. And they removed me and put another heating and air company in there. And which was a big slap in the face. I never held a grudge. I apologize. I did my nobody asked me to apologize, but I did a personal apology, and I posted it on my website. And it went viral too. Actually, Dayton Daily News threw me under the bus more than anybody else, and I've spent tens of hundreds of thousands with them. In the day, in the 90s, when it was newspaper ads, all that stuff, and they're part of Cox Media, they wrote the worst story ever on me and just blasted me. Like I said, I've never held a grudge. I had a lot in the meantime, I had a lot of people sponsoring me and backing me. But you know what? I found out that a lot of people were scared too, because if they supported me, then they'd be part of me, part of what I said. So a lot of people didn't say anything, even though they supported me. So what I learned from that is when people are going through a hard time, I'm in their face. I'm with them because people need someone. They need support. They needed help. I needed it, even though I'm Greg McAfee and I'm a pretty tough guy, Marine, all that kind of stuff. But I still needed someone to say, hey, you said something stupid, but I'm with you. Yeah. And I didn't have a whole lot of that. I had some. And I had some cool people help me through this, especially my wife and my family. And but I didn't have enough. So I took that. I didn't hold a grudge. We've grown 88% since 2020. That's huge. I mean, that's just huge.
Yeah, it's big.
20 on average, probably 18% a year. So a lot of people thought I was going to go under. And I'll tell you, I had mixed emotions through that whole process. It's just, let's just sell McAfee and move to Florida. You know what I mean? I got a house in Florida. And I was just going to leave because I felt attacked, and I felt that everybody felt that way. That's how I felt for a little bit. Very short term, because my personality doesn't let me get down too long, but I get down. And then I fix things. I pray a lot. I fix things and move on. And but I don't hold grudges. I don't know. Bible's pretty clear. You hold a grudge, it's going to be held against you. I don't want anything held against me, even though some people still do. About that, still, it's amazing how many people hold grudges like that. It's crazy, mean mean. I mean, just like cold-hearted mean.
Yeah.
Crazy. People you'd never think that you worked with in different groups, especially charities and stuff, called me and reamed me out. I mean, just you would not believe how cold-hearted people are. And they didn't even ask me, why did you say what you said? They never asked that. They just attacked me. So when Elon Musk and Donald Trump and everybody else that gets attacked like that all the time, 100 times fold on steroids than I did, I'm telling you, they got some major broad shoulders and major tough skin to deal with what they deal with. You know, with Tesla being attacked today by everybody, all he's trying to do is help out America. It would be hard, but he's tough.
I tell you, I went through a setback, probably around the same, a couple years before you. And what I learned in that situation, the number one thing, you learn who your real friends are.
Right.
And you learn who the real people are that are in your lives. Because oftentimes when you're in business, and maybe you feel like this, maybe you don't, but when you have a successful business and you're in the public eye, there's a lot of people that come around you. A lot of people that want to be close to you. There's a lot of people that want to talk to you. And sometimes you get a false sense of having people around you that maybe you could trust, or that maybe you're a little bit closer to than what you think. And I'll tell you that during my setback, I really found out who my circle was. And that was the biggest lesson that I learned, was to always put everybody in my life in different groups and understand where those groups are at
Absolutely.
all times. But you could have, and what I think is incredible about this story, you could have tucked tail. You could have went to Florida. You could have sold your company, made a lot of money off your company at the time. You guys were big then. You could have changed everything about your company. There's so many things that you could have done, but instead of doing all of the things that you could have done, what you did was, sounds like, you buckled down and said, how do I power through this? And not only how do I power through this, but how do I come out more incredible on the other end for my company, for my family, for myself? How'd you get through that mentally? You know, look, we're guys. We have a lot of pride. I think you're like me, where you don't show emotions a lot. Like, you're a tough guy. You want to be strong for your family. You want your family to feel that they're protected with you. But at the end of the day, with entrepreneurship and business, we have some dark moments. We have some moments of depression that we usually don't share with everybody because we're those tough guys. So how did you deal with the mental piece of that when you're going through that?
Well, and I think some of the hardest part was my team, especially the younger guys didn't understand. They think differently. They thought I was just a really mean, cruel individual for saying what I said. So some of them quit right away. You know, we had 4 or 5 people quit right away. And then I ended up having a meeting. I apologized to everyone, you know, for hurting them more than anything and putting them in a situation that wasn't pleasant. I mean, we had few thousand people call in 2 days and cancel. And a lot of it was the older people that canceled, their kids were telling them, you are not going to do business with that guy. I mean, this was bad. This was just terrible time in America. Just terrible timing. If I would have said the same thing 5 years before that, you know, I might have lost 10 customers, right? But it was just terrible timing. So, but I was really more upset. How did I get through it mentally? First of all, my faith in God is very strong. Secondly, I believe in training the mind before you can deal with anything. And I train my mind. I've learned how to train my mind by, it's thinking positive, but it's also telling myself, you will get through this. It is hard, but you will get through this. And not only will you get through this, you're already through it. Okay, we're gonna make things happen now, and people are gonna regret ever doing this to you, and in a good way, because that's when I win. That's how I get even. I win.
Sure.
And I don't have to hurt anyone to win. I win by taking market share. I win by coming back strong. That's how I win, and I get over it fast because I like to win. So anyway, I gave my whole team double time for 3 weeks. And then I offered an extremely healthy bonus if they'd stay with me at least 3 months, and I'd pay them at the end. And some people stayed and left on that 3rd month. and got their money and left. And some people have stayed with me. I have Carrie. She's my VP of Ops. I just hired her 3 weeks before this happened.
Oh, wow.
And she goes, I don't know. She goes, I just got to know you in 3 weeks, and I knew you were different than what they were saying. And she stayed. And, I take care of her the best I can because she didn't have to stay. And she's done a lot for us. But it's the mindset of any very, very successful person, is beating the odds, wanting to win, and not letting what people say take you down too far.
Yeah.
And a good friend of mine who did stick with me gave me a sign. It's in my office. It's still there today. The comeback's always greater than the setback. And you will have setbacks in life. Anytime you're making things happen, you're going to be attacked and you're going to have setbacks. And the more you do, Elon Musk is a great example. He's the wealthiest man in the world.
Right.
And I've read everything there is to know about him. And John D. Rockefeller was the wealthiest man in his time. I've read everything about him. I mean, he's all about generational wealth and family banks. And it's the strongest family bank ever, 7th generation now. But you got to have tenacity, and you can't quit. I mean, quitters never win and winners never quit, but you just got to be strong.
Yeah. Well, I think that's so true what you said,
Not for
right?
everybody.
No, it's not. You have to be strong, to get through some things in business and in life. But I say it a lot, right? Is like, if you don't have haters, you just simply are not doing big enough things.
Right.
Because the minute that you start making waves, and waves in a positive way, like growing businesses and having success, the natural instinct of society is to not want that for you. Like, people want to see you fail, right? Because so many people are miserable within their own situation. The only thing that makes them feel better is by seeing other people fail. The strong entrepreneurs in the world, the successful people in the world, we thrive on seeing other people be successful, because that makes us push harder because we want to do better than them,
Absolutely.
right?
Well,
And
you never have a hater who's doing better than you.
Never.
I've never heard of that in my life. Someone doing better than you never hates you.
It doesn't.
They
It doesn't
actually
happen.
pull for you and they help you. I mean, I've had guys worth multi millions, billions help me free.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't take my money, wouldn't take my lunch money. I wanted to buy their lunch. My first couple of years in business, I got an idea from Chuck Schwindoll. He's a very well-known pastor back at the time, big. And when he first became a pastor, he sent out 3 letters. I need some advice. I'll buy your lunch. I'll give you $100. I did the same thing. I sent out 3 letters. I was just a young rookie. I started it in 26, so I was probably 27 or 28 years old. And I said, I wrote a letter, typed a letter. I didn't have a computer. And I said, I'm a new company in Dayton, Ohio, and I wrote them to Columbus, Cincinnati, anyone outside my area. And I said, I'll give you, I want to buy your lunch. I want to talk to you for an hour, and I'll give you $100 for your time. And that was like, $300 today.
Sure.
And one person responded. His name's Mark Swepston. He owned Atlas Butler for years. At the time, they were probably doing 15 to 20 million a year. Today, they're doing 150 million a year. Wouldn't let me buy him lunch. Spent 6 hours with me, and wouldn't take my $100. And we became great friends, and we meet 2 to 3 times a year today. Those are the type of people you want to hang around with. That's who you want to be like. Those type of people don't hate, they help.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
Network is so powerful in business, and removing negativity out of your life, removing, anybody that doesn't support what your mission is, right? Like, because, when we're so busy with entrepreneurship, we don't have time for the drama. We don't have time for, I say it kind of often, right? Is like, I don't go out with my friends a lot to like bars or for drinks and things like that, simply because I don't have time to worry about everybody else's problems, right?
Right.
Like, when I'm around people, when I'm around friends or other business, like, I want positive stuff. I want to talk about how we're improving our lives, how we're improving our families' lives. I want to talk about entrepreneurship because that's what my passion is.
Right.
And at times we got to cut people out of there. But for you get through this. You get through the cancel culture thing, but that's not the end of your setbacks. I mean, you had not just one, but two huge health scares in your family after this, that again could have made you kind of fold shop and go from there. But you had some serious health scares not too long ago, right?
Well, a year later, 3 days before Thanksgiving, 2021, I started having chest pains, and nothing textbook about this. Right top, cold chest pains, really weird. I'm taking care of elderly dad, elderly stepmom. It all led to stress. It comes, it goes, dissipates, all stress. So I go through this again. We're guys. We don't want to go to the doctor.
Right.
So we're, 4 or 5 days this is going on. And then Saturday morning, I work every Saturday. Always have. As long as I'm in town, I'm in the office. And I do my podcast on Saturday. I do a lot of different stuff. But anyway, Saturday morning, I swept out my garage, just dry leaves, right? It's Thanksgiving. Really, really hit me. So I drive to the office. I couldn't even lift my arms to type on my keyboard. So I called my wife. I said, I'm going to run down to Miami Valley South, 10 minutes away. I said, just have them check me out. She said, good. So I got down there. The first 3 tests they gave me were negative. If they would have sent me home right there, I'd be dead. First 3 tests, negative. And then they said, fortunately, a doctor was wise enough to say, let me just go ahead and check your blood enzymes just for the heck of it, see where they're at. Well, they were elevated. So he said, you either had a heart attack or you're having one right now. So I was like, what? I just did 30 minutes on the elliptical a couple days ago. I was fine. So then I thought, well, it's got to be probably just a couple stents. So the next day they do a heart cath, and Dr. Schreck is his name. He's a customer of mine. So he's talking about his heating and air the whole time I'm on the table.
Yeah.
He goes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. This is going to be surgically repaired. I go, what? He goes, yeah. He said, your widowmaker's 99.9% blocked. Your right coronary artery, 99% blocked. And then you got 3 that are about 85 to 90. He said, I got one of the best surgeons, friend of mine. He said, I'll see if he can do it today. I go, today? He goes, yeah. He went and talked to him, and he said, we can do it 5 a.m. in the morning. So they put me on heart relaxers and everything. So the next day, I had a quintuple bypass, and everything went well. I was in the hospital, I don't know, 4 or 5 days. You kind of go through the levels 1 through 5, and then you can go home. And I'm home. My wife's all prepared to take care of me. And about the second day, she comes down with COVID, real bad. And here she's like living out of a bedroom upstairs. Little did we even think about it, that ductwork. I mean, she could have just stayed in the house. Ductwork's ductwork. It goes through. I'm a heating and air guy.
Right.
So she went to the hospital. They didn't even keep her. They just sent her home. And she went again, and she made them, put her in hospital because her oxygen was really low, and it's supposed to be in the 90s, and it was like 82. And anyway, she got COVID pneumonia. She was in the hospital 19 days. She had black circles around her eyes, and a doctor friend of mine called me and said, Greg, black circles are like the last thing before death. She goes, I have ivermectin. It's not allowed in the hospital, but if you want, I'll get her on it right now, and you'll have to help me sneak it in. I can hardly walk. I go, just do it. Just do it. And within 3 days, black circles are gone. She starts feeling better. She was on 100% oxygen at that time, and it gradually dissipated, and she came home within 5 days of ivermectin, which is illegal in the hospital. Doesn't work, right? So my 2 kids almost lost both parents within a week. That's scary to think about. Now we're both doing well. My wife still has has complications from COVID pneumonia, but I got pretty serious a year later and decided I was going to lose 100 pounds when I went to my cardiologist, and I said, hey, if I'm on 6 meds for high blood pressure and high cholesterol, And I said, if I lose a lot of weight, can I get off these meds? And he looked at my weight and he looked at me and he goes, we'll see. You don't tell an entrepreneur we'll see.
Right.
Because that's a challenge.
That is absolutely a challenge.
On the way home, I called my wife. I said, I'm losing 100 pounds and I'm serious. So I wrote down a 10-step process just for me. Here's what I'm going to do. And I stuck to it. No meds, no surgery. And one day before the 9th month, I weighed in at a half pound less, 100.5 pounds less than I did 9 months ago. So, and I worked out the entire time. Seriously, not the entire time. The first couple of months I was so swelled and miserable, even though I had heart surgery. I lost 40 pounds right away after the heart surgery. But what do you do after that? You start eating again. You're growing a business. You're busy. Things happen. You just eat. And I eat because I enjoy eating. And I don't smoke. I don't drink, but I enjoy eating. And so anyway, I lost 40 pounds, but I gained it right back. So anyway, I lose 100 pounds. And I said, I got such a following from that. I'm helping so many people lose weight and get in shape now. That keeps me from ever gaining it back. I mean, I can't gain it back now. I'll lose every ounce of, my reputation of losing 100 pounds.
Well, listen, you have a big weight on your shoulders now, and that showed before we started this podcast. People watching this now, they won't see it, but right before we started this podcast, one of my full-time maintenance guys, we'll say he was fanboying about Greg McAfee, okay? He follows you, and I follow you. And I see him like every one of your posts. He's always commenting on your post, and he has such admiration and respect for you. And he started a weight loss journey of himself, and he's been doing really good. And you've been an inspiration to him. And before we started this podcast, I said, well, come on in, man, meet Greg, And I don't know sometimes, like you probably don't realize the impact. And I know when you think about it, you do, but sometimes you don't realize the impact that you have just by putting yourself out there on social media. But this guy comes in and wants to meet you and tells you you've been an inspiration to him. And that was, the reason that I'd go on social media is for those types of moments right there where you've helped somebody that maybe you didn't realize you could help. Was that your intention when you started sharing your journey?
Yeah, my calling's always been just to help people think different anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could say one thing and it'll help you think different, it's going to change your life. And it could change your kid's life and their kid's life and their kid's life forever. Because people have said things to me that it stuck. And I made a change. And I didn't want to. When someone told me that GD and F-bombs are lack of vocabulary, that stuck. Because I knew I had lack of vocabulary. So I had to change my vocabulary permanently. And I did. Besides becoming a Christian, not talking like that anymore, it meant more that basically he's saying you're stupid, and that's the only vocabulary you have. So for someone like me, that's all it took. You didn't have to say anything else. I had to change my vocabulary fast. So, and that's how I do with everything. It's kind of like, you're going to do something, just do it right. Do it the best you can. And then help other people do it as well, because this losing weight, not just the losing weight, the working, when I'd get up 3:30, I had to eat an hour before I got in the gym. I'd get up at 3:30, be in the gym at 5. And I say, like, it's past tense because I had back surgery, so I haven't been in there in a little while. But I'd post my breakfast, and I'd post, I'm leaving to the gym, and I'd say something on the way to the gym, a pre-word of the day, and people started following me, and they started working out. I mean, 4 people came to my trainer alone, who could afford it.
Sure.
And, but if they couldn't, they just went to another gym, and then people started asking me questions. What do you do? How do you work out? What do you, and it just became something I love. I love helping people who are hungry to learn.
Yeah.
If you're not hungry to learn, don't talk to me.
Right.
And don't ask me questions if you're not going to follow through either.
Man, that's the biggest frustration I have.
Isn't it?
Man, it drives you nuts.
Don't waste my time. I just gave you how to do it, and you're going a different direction. Don't waste my time.
Yeah, people don't understand that, right? You don't have to call me a name or talk about me to disrespect me. The easiest way to disrespect me is by abusing my time, getting all the advice, and not doing a single thing that I told you to do.
Right.
Like, that's the biggest disrespect that you can give, right? Because we are busy guys. But we take the time to help people from time to time, but you got to take action on it, right? So let's go back to business though, real quick before we jump ahead. You and your wife, you both have this health scare.
Yeah.
and you guys both pull out of it. But during that time, do you feel like your business, like, do you feel McAfee Heating and Air had a good continuity plan if the worst case scenario was to happen, that you would have passed away?
Yeah. Yeah, because of actually what happened in 2020, we put together even a stronger succession plan. And I told you with Carrie, my VP of Ops, she runs the place today. I don't have to be there anymore. I make very few decisions that I have to make there. And as long as I stay out of their way, because it's my business. I think we ought to do this.
Sure.
I just stay out of the way, and it runs fine. And I sit in on some leadership team meetings, and but really, when I'm at the office anymore, I'm either training someone, I'm training my team, either how to sell, how to talk to people, how to have a better image of yourself. Here's what you need to do, or I'm doing my podcast stuff. I'm writing articles. I'm busy all the time. I work 10 to 12 hours a day. I always say an entrepreneur works half a day. They just pick which 12 they want to work.
That's it.
And so I'm busy, but I'm not busy in McAfee. There's other people busy in McAfee.
Yeah, a lot of small businesses, small business owners, and even mid-sized businesses, one of the things they skip out on is creating a great succession plan, a great continuity plan. That's my biggest fear, right? Like, and I say it to my wife quite often. She's one of the few people that know where all the bodies are buried, right? But we all have to have people like that in our lives, that if something was to happen to us, our businesses have to continue. If we were just a sole proprietor and it was just us, whatever, right? But we have an impact on people's lives. We have employees that depend on a paycheck and customers that depend on the service. And oftentimes people just skip over that. They don't have a great succession plan or a great continuity plan. Did anything change after that? Or because of 2020, you were kind of already prepared? So when the health thing happened, you felt like, hey, we've already created this plan. Like, we're good. Do you think that played in helping you get through that a little bit easier?
Yeah, because it makes you think. I mean, what's a quintuple bypass? What's that? What's the chances? You have to ask yourself. You have to ask somebody, what's the chances coming through this? And they take major arteries out of your legs, out of your arm, out of your chest, and put them in your heart. And I don't know. I didn't have a whole lot of fear. I wasn't freaking out. A lot of people freak out about stuff like that. It's just, it is what it is. If I die, I'm ready to go. And my business is, I've prepared well, and I've had a lot of good, I didn't come up with that. I had a lot of good people around me saying, hey, here's what you need to do. Here's what I've done. You got to get close. And over the years, especially over the past 20 years out of 35, good friend of mine, my best friend, Kelly Yaman, he's CPA and also life insurance, and one of our advisors. And he's probably 10 years younger than me, extremely smart. And, he's got me all life insurance up, disability up, everything up. And my wife, we meet regular basis, and she knows what we have, where it's at. That's another thing guys basically suck at, is really keeping their wives informed.
Sure. Not because we don't want to.
Right. We think we did.
We're just, so she's like, well, you didn't tell me that. I'm like, I did.
Yeah.
There's no way I didn't tell you that. Right. But it's not because we don't want to.
Right.
We just don't. But I think what you're saying is you've become intentional about that.
Right. And we have accounts in both our names. I make sure if I open up another account, I got to get her name on it in case something happens to me. So I make sure I do all that kind of stuff. And even I don't want my kids to have to pay a lot of, if probate taxes, depends on the president and all that stuff, but I don't want them have to worry about that. So I have insurance for that. You know what I mean? It's a policy where both of us have to die to get it, but that'll pay for all the tax. You don't have to worry about losing everything over tax. So I've tried to prepare well ahead. And then if we want to talk about future stuff, we'll talk about the family bank, the generational wealth, all that stuff. I take that stuff extremely serious. And we can get into that in a little bit if you got time.
Yeah, absolutely. You're mentioning the health insurance, and that was one of the first things I did. Whole life policies. how much does my family need if I was to leave this world tomorrow to continue the lifestyle that they have, right? And I don't believe in handing my kids money, and I want them to learn how to grind, and I want them to learn how to work. But they all have whole life policies that are already, when they turn 18, you take over paying for them, and it takes such a stress off of you when you know that if I'm not here tomorrow, my family's going to be all right.
Right.
They're going to be okay. My employees are going to be okay. And when I got intentional with my wife, making sure she knew everything that happened in our business, and I have what I like to call a gatekeeper, and outside of my wife, because we travel a lot together. We could be on a plane that goes down together, right?
Think about that.
So I do have a person in my life that is what I call the gatekeeper, and that person is close to me. I'll never tell anybody who it is, just in case. But they know absolutely every single thing about my business. They know every account. They know where everything is at. And the only person that knows who they are is our attorneys. But it takes so much stress knowing that things are going to be taken care of if we're out of there. And it sounds like you did that early on. But I think the natural transition in business, when you have success like you've had with McAfee, is you start thinking about the generational wealth piece, and you think about how to not only leave your legacy, but to make sure that everybody's going to be okay. But because of the success you've had there, that's presented you with some other opportunities that you probably otherwise wouldn't have had. And you have a really cool real estate project going on right now, right?
I do. And when I talked about John D. Rockefeller earlier, there's a really neat 15-minute stream on Rockefeller versus Vanderbilt. Vanderbilts were one time the wealthiest family in the world.
Yep.
Their wealth only lasted 3 generations. There's only a few Vanderbilts today worth over $1 million. The Rockefeller wealth has went on 7 generations. They're on their 7th generation, and they have billions in their family bank. And because of life insurance, everybody has to have a policy on them, and that the policy's under the trust. And so the trust gets the money when they pass away, and that's what keeps buying more life insurance. And then the trust can borrow from the life insurance, and it just keeps going. And it's the smartest thing in the world. And a lot of people are teaching from it and taking from it today. But I have never been I've never been a believer, even when my kids were little, just giving them money. They had to earn money. When my son had to he mowed the yard twice in 3 days to get money.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't going to hand him money. I never handed him money. We did a cool deal on both of them for their cars. They bought a car at a lower price that we drove for a while, but they paid cash for the car, and then they had to buy their own gas, and we paid for their own insurance. So in order for him to have gas money, he had to do something. I don't care if it was clean the garage, mow the yard, whatever. Not clean his room, though. It didn't pay. You had to keep your room clean.
Yeah. So,
and for a lot of parents, they don't understand that concept. Not everything gets paid. There's no allowance for everything. That's responsibility. Make your bed. I'm going to pay you to make your bed. You're going to make your bed.
That's it.
So, anyway, so as we aged, and my son's 30, you're not going to get handed you're not going to get handed an inheritance. I want you to be a millionaire before before you get $1 million from me. Both of us have to die for that to happen.
Right.
So, but I want you to earn your own keep, which he's doing a really good job at. And Tiffany's only 21. So she's got 4 more years for her frontal lobe to come together, before she can think about that kind of stuff yet. So anyway, but for 5 years, we looked for a piece of property. A good friend of mine was going to be a partner with me. Glad it didn't work out, because good friends and partners don't always work anyway. But we were going to buy some property and build an indoor RV storage. And the 2 properties we went to purchase, both deals fell through. So he just said, I don't want to do it. I said, well, I still do. So we divided everything, and I just kept looking. I looked at several properties. And while I was looking at one right off 235, right off 70, which is ideal for RV storage, off a main highway, 2 miles from 75, 2 miles from 675, right off 70. New Buc-ee's is right there on the corner, by the way.
I mean, you're crossroads of America.
And I didn't know
there,
Buc-ee's was going in there when I bought the property almost 2 years ago.
Just the added benefit.
And they're RV friendly. This is huge. So anyway, I'm looking at this 10 acres thinking I can get so many RV. And he goes, I go, no, I'm not interested in this. I said, there ended up being a stream going underneath it. So he goes, you know what? There's 32 acres right down the road that it's not even listed. Kidding me. So we went down and looked at it. It was a corner lot. The last 32 acres of a 500 acre farm. And I got it really for a really good deal. And so I bought it. And we sat on it for a little while. Grew hay on it, subbed out hay farm. And then we drew up the plans for, it's going to be the largest indoor RV, climate controlled, generator backup, solar powered. We'll have about 570 units when we're done with third phase. We have 90 in our first phase. It's already done. It's open now. And it's just high end. It's for the guy that's spending $250,000 plus on an RV, wants a really nice place to keep it. So that's in the family. That's in the McAfee trust. It's not family trust. It's not even owned by me. I own the trust, but it's not owned by my wife, and I own the majority of the trust. And then my two kids have a percentage, but it's, and then we're starting a family bank, and we're going to do with a lot less zeros what Rockefeller did. And hopefully I can make it go 10 generations. That's the plan, to do that. And what's that mean, to have family bank? Well, that means we're not handing kids money. They're borrowing money from the trust at a very low interest rate, and they have to go through a committee to see if they're allowed to borrow the money. They have to have responsibility. And if they don't pay it back, they can't borrow again, but their life insurance will pay it back later, because everybody's going to have life insurance in my family generation after generation after generation. So you get paid back one way or another. You just have to wait for it.
Yeah, it's so important. And that goes right back to what we were, my old kind of feelings, and I heard this from somebody a long time ago, was I didn't come from a family of millionaires or wealthy, but it's my job to create that.
Absolutely.
And you're doing it, and you're doing it the right way. And the power of life insurance policies, even with simple stuff. One of the things that I belong to, I'm a Mason and a Shriner. And one of the things when I became the worshipful master of our lodge was looking at our finances. And I said, why in the world are we not spending a little bit of money taking out whole life policies on a lot of our members? We're all going to pass away at some point, right? And they're like, well, we can't afford this right now. Well, let's think about 30, 40 years down the road while we're setting this lodge up. And our lodge is the oldest one in Dayton. I said, how do we make this last another 300-400 years? And through insurance policies, life insurance and things like that, that's absolutely a way to keep wealth within your family. And you're right, it's an investment. It takes a while, and now people are living a lot longer, so it might take a little bit longer.
Right.
But that's the way to do it. And so many people skip out on the small stuff, but sounds like you're thinking about all that, setting your family up the right way. What's next for you? Like, besides the RV and the climate control, like, you ready to kick back and retire in Florida yet, or what?
I talk often about retirement. I don't believe in retirement. And actually, biblically, there's only one little verse about some priest having to retire because he was sick. There is no retirement. It's refirement. I'm going to refire one day.
Yeah.
And the plan, I'm 61 years old. So the plan is this, Platinum RV storage is my refirement, and we're going to blow this thing up like no other, and maybe have 2 or 3 of them. I don't know yet. But my son's very into it, and, completely other story, but my son's very into crypto, and he got me into it. So, it's really neat. When your kids get older and that frontal lobe comes together and they really start maturing and thinking for themselves, that's when life really gets fun.
Couple tough months here for us in crypto, but we're going to be all right.
Sure.
I have faith in that. Last question for you here before we head out. You said earlier, an outspoken guy. You're strong in your faith. You're strong in your beliefs. And I appreciate that about people. Even if whether it's you or whether it's somebody else, even if it's somebody that I don't agree with their views on, I appreciate people being honest and transparent with their beliefs and their faith and how they approach life. But that can be challenging in business. And you know that. I mean, look, half our country believes a different way, right? Like
Right.
we saw that with our last election. How do you balance that? Because you're outspoken on your social media in a positive way, but how do you balance that with your business? Being able to be the type of guy that you want to be and be honest and transparent with what you believe in the world and faith. Faith is a very complicated subject in business sometimes too. How do you balance that with your business and not turn off certain clients or certain people? Like how do you stay steadfast with being able to be who you want to be, but also maintaining a very successful business?
Sure. That's probably one thing I'll never back down from. I am who I am. I'm going to speak about who I believe in and who I worship. And if people don't like it, you don't have to do business with me. And I'm okay with that. But a lot of people believe what I believe. And a lot of people are like you, like the guy stands for something. I'd rather do business with someone who stands for something.
Yeah.
And he's not afraid to say it. I mean, and it's very clear biblically that if you don't recognize God, he's not going to recognize you. I don't want to be not recognized. So I'm saying it Greg's version, but basically if you're a Christian and you don't acknowledge God, don't be disappointed one day.
Yeah. Well, you've been able to figure it out and power through some crazy storms in your life, you know, from a business standpoint, from personal standpoints. And my respect for you is incredible. I follow your marketing. I've always been impressed with it. And I think that people listening to this they can learn so much from you, you know, and there are some successful people in the world. And then there's just some really great individuals in this world that have a lot of success. And you're one of those. Now, your foundation, the McAfee Foundation, is there a way for people to give to that if they wanted to donate to the McAfee Foundation, or is that just employee ran and that's the only way?
Oh no, a lot of people give to it. We do 5K runs. The McAfee sponsors it. We do the Truck or Treat event every year where we have 3,000 to 5,000 people on our property, and we have different companies come in and they pay a little bit to have a space, give candy away to kids, have games. It's a really safe Halloween because it's during the day and it's right there in Kettering. People come from all over, 3,000 to 5,000. That's a lot of kids. And we have prizes they can win and all that kind of stuff, best costume, all that kind of stuff. We've been doing that we took 1 year off for COVID, but other than that, we've been doing it for about 7 years.
All right. So if people want to hook up with the McAfee Foundation and support it, where do they go?
They go to mcair.com and just find foundation, and there's different ways to give. Or they can write us a check, they can give online, whatever it takes.
And that's the same website if they want to hook up with your team or your company, or they have HVAC needs or whatever. Do you guys have a website up yet for the storage?
It's prvstorage.com.
prvstorage.com. If you want to hook up with my man Greg, if you need HVAC services, if you're looking for a foundation to give to, if you need some storage facility needs for your RVs and things like that, or if you just want to be around somebody incredible, those are your websites. That's how you connect. And until next time, that's it.
Holla, why do they doubt the kid? I'm about to prove them all wrong again. I got a low tolerance, cause they don't even know what the problem is. It's me. You waiting on the boy to fail, then hold your breath and face your death.